All right, I'm still in Arizona. Got a few more hours here. Gonna go to this burger place in Tempe in a little bit, and that will be the centerpiece of another 49ers video as we continue our analysis with the customary grades. Even though the game against the Ravens is not until next Monday night, so we've got an extra day to prepare for it. I want to start turning the page to that because I know that people were already looking forward to that. It is one of the biggest NFL matchups ever in week 16 of the season. Today, I even texted Mike Shanahan and I said, I think this might be the biggest week 16 matchup since the 49ers and Mike Shanahan's Broncos played in 1997 on Monday Night Football. The 49ers won that game 34-17. That was Jerry Rice coming back from the torn ACL week 1 in week 16. It was a record recovery for Jerry Rice, but he cracked his patella in that game, and then they missed him for the playoffs. The 49ers ended up being beaten by the Green Bay Packers, and Mike Shanahan's Broncos actually won the Super Bowl that year in 1997. They beat the Packers for the 49ers. I'm sure 49ers fans were happy about that. That was down in San Diego that year, the Super Bowl. But anyway, that was an epic Week 16 matchup. The 49ers have an epic Week 16 matchup against the Baltimore Ravens coming up just like that one at Candlestick. This is going to be Monday Night Football in the Bay Area. Obviously, Candlestick no longer there. RIP. 49ers will host the Ravens at Levi's. So, grades for the game against Arizona. 49ers beat the Cardinals 45-29. Obviously, some defensive leakage in this game, but another absolutely elite offensive performance from the San Francisco 49ers. So why don't we start from the defensive side of the ball? I have the article up, the great 49ers MVP debate. Frontrunner Brock Purdy touts Christian McCaffrey's case. And then Christian McCaffrey took to social media and said, no, Brock is wrong. He should be the MVP. I mean, it was a finger pointing session that reminded me of the old Spider-Man meme. And this is what was going on in the locker room. McCaffrey's saying that Purdy's the MVP. Purdy's saying that McCaffrey's the MVP. I think it's a good problem for the 49ers to have. I think it encapsulates the essence of this team. There's superstardom across the board, and that superstardom is selfless. There's humility on display. You combine those ingredients, and you have a team that can cohesively operate as a juggernaut. And this goes back to John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, who said from the very start that they not only wanted to build a talented roster, they wanted to build a roster with the right type of people. If you had the right type of personalities in the locker room, you can attain what the 49ers have attained now, and that is a roster that is finger-pointing, but they're finger-pointing because they're calling another guy the MVP. They're not finger-pointing because it's a toxic culture in the locker room. So that's what I wrote about. That's in the description. I made sure it's there. $1 a month for the Athletic. There's a holiday sale going on right now. This is when you want to consume all of your 49ers content. So go ahead and check that out. We're going to go through the grades. I'll keep the article up on the screen just to keep that reminder there for you. But let's travel through the defense first against the Cardinals. 49ers secondary gets an A, unequivocally. These guys were awesome yesterday. Arizona wasn't able to deal in the drop back pass game. Kyler Murray is very, very inaccurate from the pocket. Less accurate than I remember him from before the ACL tear. I think that the injury definitely is something that he's still working back from as far as knocking off rust. But whenever the 49ers were able to just make Kyler Murray sit back there and throw, he missed so many times yesterday. It got ugly to me. Kyler is short. So seeing over the pocket is an issue. He does have to move around a little bit, I think, to be at his best. That's why he does move around a lot. He's obviously very fast. Got the 49ers on a couple runs yesterday. But as far as delivering in the pass game, it was not an accurate performance. Some of the bigger plays were inaccurate passes from Kyler Murray. He had a hit Trey McBride on a third down conversion. I think this one was in the third quarter of the game. McBride was along the sideline and Murray's pass was high. McBride had to leap up and get it. That was one that he could actually catch. Other passes, though, weren't on target at all for for Kyler Murray. Couldn't get them anywhere near his intended targets. So the 49ers pass defense certainly flustered Kyler Murray. They did a good job with their coverage combinations on the back end. And Charvarius Ward is somebody who we have to talk about because he should be an all-pro consideration. Deron Bland has 8 interceptions this year. I know he has all those pick sixes. That obviously has Deron Bland probably on the inside track for at least one of the 2 all-pro spots at cornerback in the NFL. But Charvarius Ward is second in the league with 4 picks, and he actually leads all corners and all defensive backs with 23 pass breakups. So, and just the trajectory that we've seen too from Charvarius Ward this season has gotten better and better and better and better. A few penalties early in the year, he's cut those out. Last year, he was the best tackling corner in the NFL. He's still good. I don't think he ranks number 1 in that regard anymore. But the coverage has gotten better for Charvarius Ward. And it's gotten better for Deommodore Lenoir, who exited the game with a rib injury. I think it didn't sound like there was all too much concern from Kyle Shanahan talking about him after the game yesterday. He said he got rolled up on. We'll get the update from Shanahan a little bit later today. That's going to be on Monday afternoon as usual. But with Lenoir playing the way he's playing, with Ambry Thomas playing the way he's playing, with the safeties covering really well at Jair Brown and Tashawn Gibson, the 49ers secondary continues to turn heads. And as these games get bigger and bigger, and obviously they have the former MVP Lamar Jackson coming up this next week in the Baltimore Ravens, I think as these games get bigger and bigger, there's going to be a brighter spotlight on this secondary. Then you're going to move into the playoffs for the 49ers, and that's when you have to be at your best against the best QBs on the other side. And this year, and this goes back to Steve Wilks, the 49ers DB-minded defensive coordinator, this year I think the 49ers are as strong on the back end as they've been under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. And that obviously pairs really well with how good of a pass rush they have. And I'll go to the defensive line next. The defensive line, I give them a B-. Not because of the pass rush. I don't think there was anything wrong with the pass rush. I think that the 49ers contained Murray well. I think that they obviously saw Javon Kinlaw push the pocket against this Arizona team to net a sack along with Nick Bosa. That was a big play in the first half. You saw Bosa deliver 3 pressures. You saw a similar game plan as the one that the 49ers employed against Jalen Hurts. I don't think that they pinned their ears back and rushed with reckless abandon. I think they went with discipline up front, and it worked to hem Kyler Murray into the pocket for the most part, and he wasn't able to hurt them with his arm. I mean, the 49ers really, really did a good job in pass defense, and that starts with the secondary, and I gave them an A, and that continues with the defensive line. So you're probably asking me, well, why the B-? Well, the run defense for the 49ers wasn't good. They gave up over 200 yards on the ground. They gave up, 7 yards per carry, even more than that. It was a bad performance from the run defense, and it started with them missing their 2 defensive tackles, Eric Armstead and Javon Hargrave. The tackles, I thought, got washed out too much. They got tired in this game. Kalia Davis exited with an injury. It was an ankle for Kalia Davis, so we'll have to see his status today. And after those, tackles, especially after they got tired, but even drive 1 wasn't good for the 49ers interior against the run. The 49ers started missing a big time amount of tackles, and that's why I have their linebackers with the lowest grade of the season, a C- for the 49ers linebackers. Here are the missed tackles for the 49ers over the course of the year. I have to take off the linebacker grade so you could see the bottom. That's the Arizona game. That's 16 missed tackles. That's a season high for the 49ers. And as you can tell, they've gone through stretches of elite tackling and stretches of poor tackling. The first 5 games, they didn't give up more than 8 missed tackles in any game. Only 2 against Dallas. That was the peak of the season. Then all of a sudden, you go to Cleveland in week 6, and that 3-game losing streak has 10, 9, and 13 missed tackles, respectively. Not good, right? 49ers were really tired in that Cincinnati game right before the bye, so they got their rest. Came to Jacksonville. It's elite again for 3 straight games. 7, 4, and 5, Jacksonville, Tampa Bay, and Seattle. But then all of a sudden, the last 3 games, stuff has taken a turn for the worse for the 49ers. They allowed 12 missed tackles against Philadelphia. They missed 14 tackles against Seattle, and then 16 yesterday against Arizona. That last touchdown run for the Cardinals looked like Dre Greenlaw just quit playing. He thought that they had the play bottled up, and he's just standing there, and all of a sudden the running back sprints by him for the long score. Fred Warner missed a lot of tackles in the hole. I think a lot of this is a domino effect, right? If you're missing Eric Armstead, and Eric Armstead's one of the best run stoppers in football. In 2021, the 49ers had a below average run defense when Eric Armstead was playing defensive end. As soon as they moved him into defensive tackle, they became the best run defense in football. They finished number 1 in 2021. Remember when Eno Benjamin was running over people, 49ers Cardinals, giving you a little bit of history. Colt McCoy was the quarterback, the backup in 2021. Kyler was hurt. 49ers couldn't stop the run. Well, when Armstead moved inside, the 49ers figured things out. And yes, they started stonewalling the run. So missing Armstead is a big deal. Hargrave hasn't been as good against the run. He's more of a pass rusher, but still missing him is a big deal because you're thinning out your rotation up front. So I think there's a domino effect kind of situation going on, because when you don't have Armstead in there, Warner has to play things a little bit differently. Greenlaw has to play things a little bit differently. The whole interior, especially if you're playing a team like Arizona that can capitalize on it with their blocking schemes, the whole interior suffers a little bit of a collapse. That being said, the missed tackles were happening even before the 49ers saw their defensive tackles leave the lineup. So they have these spurts of bad tackling. They've had stretches of elite tackling. They need to get it back to the elite level for the playoff run, and maybe even sooner than that for this game against Baltimore. I talked to Fred Warner in the locker room yesterday, and his thing was that the Ravens are going to watch the tape, and they're going to see 16 missed tackles. They're going to see 200-plus rush yards for Arizona, and they're going to think they could do a fair share of damage against the 49ers. And the 49ers are fine with letting the Ravens think that. But the 49ers need to make sure that they use the damage inflicted against them to take this a little bit personally, to get angry, and to turn around and fix the issue. I think that getting Hargrave, getting Armstead back on the inside, which might happen this week, the 49ers certainly hope it does, can help through a positive domino effect, right? You make the job easier on Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, all those guys tackling behind the front line. So that's obvious. But 2, because these tackling issues have now persisted for 3 weeks, they've been glossed over by wins, obviously, Philadelphia, Seattle, and now Arizona. But because they've persisted, you've got to take it personally and you've got to fix them. The 49ers have an ultra explosive offense, and we're going to get to that. And that offense can mask a lot of deficiencies, and it masked this tackling deficiency in the game yesterday. But at some point, you have to figure the 49ers are going to have to win an uglier game. There might be a weather game at some point. A lot of rain, mud that slows down their offense. There might be a couple fluke giveaways from their offense that keeps the game close. And in that case, you can't afford to be missing tackles. And maybe the 49ers are missing the tackles because their offense is so explosive, so they've lost just a little smidge of focus. I'm not ready to make massive judgments, though, just because they were missing 2 great defensive tackles. And I expected this to be an offense-first game, right? I talked about Arizona probably scoring some points, 49ers needing to win in a shootout type of game. So I'll reserve judgment until I see this defense play against Baltimore, because based on my conversation with Fred Warner, based on my feel from that 49ers locker room yesterday, they're pretty pissed about how they played defensively, especially against the run. And they want to fix this, and they're going to have the bright lights on Monday night. They're going to have a chance to make a defensive statement, because this unit defensively, ever since the bye, had been playing as a top 3 unit, with the only weakness being the tackling over the past couple of weeks. And that was again an issue against the Arizona Cardinals. So we'll see if the 49ers do turn it around. I think the likelihood of Fred Warner having another game as sloppy as this one 2 weeks in a row is really low. So in a weird way, I almost think that it was good news for the 49ers that they suffered some of these defensive lapses against the Cardinals, because history tells us that the veterans, the superstars on this defense, will make sure to get that turned around. It's not like they have incapable talent on the back end. So this is their chance to prove it. And they obviously, in the larger formula of complementary football, have an offense that can give them runway as they are working to fix these tackling issues. Talked about the defensive line, talked about the secondary, which didn't have many tackling issues, and which obviously, boy, with that pick six from Charvarius Ward. Talk about setting a tone. Even if your run defense isn't playing great, go pick six to lead 14-7 early. 49ers never looked back from that point. That was the moment where the 49ers said, hey, even though our defense is a little beleaguered, is not going to be a close game like the Raiders game was last year, right? That was on New Year's Day. The 49ers had to win in a shootout and a comeback. Brock Purdy has come back in a game, by the way. He's just so good that he doesn't fall behind a lot of them. But that game against the Raiders last year, that was a game where the defense wasn't playing well. Offense really, really had to carry the 49ers. Here, the offense is, they're going 40-plus for the 49ers. But the defense did do some of its job, and it did its job on the back end. It made Arizona run and run and run, and the runs worked, but the pass game for Kyler Murray and company didn't work well, and that's why the 49ers still won by multiple possessions. 16-point win. They're averaging a 20-point win this year, which is insane for the NFL. So even on a game where the defense didn't bring its A game, the defense brought its B game at best, and I would even say its C game based on how poorly they played the run. The 49ers won in a rout. And let's be honest, most of the time you're going to bring your B game in the NFL. You're not going to bring your A game all the time. That's just what happens, right? And if you're good enough to win in a blowout, win by multiple possessions with your B or your C game defensively, it's a promising situation. That's where the 49ers are at right now. And I think that the likelihood of them bringing a B or C game against Baltimore is not very high, just because they got it out of their system here. And there's going to be a lot of focus coming from Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, and the defensive leadership moving forward. All right, let's move over to the 49ers offensive line. Let's take a look at the pressure they allowed against Arizona. Here you go. Jake Brendel gave up the most pressure on the inside. 4. Aaron Banks at left guard off the injury report played this game. 3 pressures. Colton McKivitz at right tackle, not terrible. 2 pressures. How about the clean sheets for Trent Williams at left tackle and John Feliciano at right guard, who was playing in place of Spencer Burford? I think all in all, this was a good game for the 49ers offensive line. Now, they also ran the football really effectively. McCaffrey had 115 yards on only 18 carries. Just running to the left, this 49ers team is absolutely lethal. I mean, we're talking sensational efficiency. You get Trent Williams out there, George Kittle out there, then Charlie Werner, the other tight end, the other blocking tight end, starts helping out. And then they'll run some pull action sometimes, even from Feliciano moving over to the left side, and it's just deadly. And you combine it with the best running back in football and Christian McCaffrey, and obviously you're going to be picking up a lot of yards. But everybody had always, known that the 49ers could run block. That's great. It's the pass protection that they want to be better. And to be honest, when you got 2 of those guys delivering clean sheets, when most of the pressure is coming up the A-gap against Brendel, when your quarterback, Brock Purdy, is a perfect 4 for 4 against the blitz, when he's able to handle extra pressure as well as he does, I mean, Purdy didn't get sacked yesterday. This is good enough to get it done. There have been much worse games for the 49ers in pass protection, but most of the pressure that came up the middle in this game did not deter the 49ers from efficiency. And that's thanks to Brock Purdy. Do they still want to get better? Of course. Is there an O-line crisis around the league? Yes. Are the 49ers feeling some of it? I think so. I think pass protection might be the weakest aspect of their team. I know they've been missing tackles lately, but over the course of the whole season, pass protection has been a little bit, below what the top standard of the league is. So they want to fuse this line together. They want to get better and better. In the meantime, they can rely on the fact that they have an elite quarterback in Brock Purdy. And I think the performance, when you combine it in the big picture with the run blocking against an Arizona defense, it's obviously not good, but you have to just take it by who you play on a week-by-week basis. Based on all that, the 49ers are moving toward their goal on the offensive line. I talked about Charlie Werner. I talked about George Kittle and the tight ends. There was a play where Charlie was not able to seal an edge against Dennis Gardeck, and it turned into a loss for Christian McCaffrey. Now, I know I'm being awfully nitpicky here. That's the one play that makes me lower the tight end grade to an A-. Whatever. I have to. This 49ers offense is playing at a historically high level under Brock Purdy with Christian McCaffrey in there that I have to find little things to nitpick at. And when Charlie Werner doesn't block a good edge, well, you get an A- instead of an A as the tight end. But George Kittle made some tough catches yesterday. And hey, the A- is also there because Kittle dropped that one pass. Arizona initially thought it was a fumble. He hurt Brock Purdy's completion rate. It was a good throw from Purdy, but good play by Arizona's defense to dislodge the ball. So, I mean, there's stuff like that. Little blemishes, but Kittle also rumbling after his 3rd and 11 catch to set up the Christian McCaffrey touchdown on the blitz against Brock Purdy. I mean, there's so much good, too. I talk about Kittle, Werner, Trent Williams teaming up for blocks on the left side. 49ers are playing at a really high level offensively. Playing at a really high level at wide receiver as well. Brandon Ayuk lost one of Brock Purdy's deep passes, I believe, in the sky. They had the roof open in Arizona yesterday. It was a beautiful day. And in the late afternoon sky, it seemed that it happened more than once. McCaffrey, he was waiting for a football when he caught his touchdown when he was really open off the Purdy spin out of the pocket. McCaffrey said he didn't see that football until it was coming down. So I think he lost it in the sky. And I think Brandon Ayuk lost one of the deep balls in the sky yesterday. So A- instead of A for the receivers. I just kind of, again, the 49ers are at the top of NFL efficiency charts. They're now threatening the greatest show on turf, Rams, in yards per attempt. And, they might end up like the 2004 Colts with 3 1,000-yard receivers and a 4,000-yard passer and a 1,500-yard rusher. 49ers would become the only team in NFL history to accomplish that. So the superlatives are here. I get picky because I'm trying to, the 49ers say that they still have a little bit left in the tank. Trent Williams says this offense isn't where it's going to be at yet when all is said and done. He says that they still can improve. So I'm viewing things within that context. And when I see a receiver lose a ball in the sky, oh, okay, I'll dock him. I'll dock him a little part of a grade. I'll go from an A to an A-. It's really, really hard to dock Christian McCaffrey. I know there was one play that he probably really wants back, and that's when he got tackled in bounds at the end of the first half, and it made the 49ers use one of their timeouts, or I think use their final timeout there at the end of the first half. They did not want that to happen. They wanted McCaffrey to get out of bounds. It wasn't worth it to fight for a couple more yards. But gosh, I mean, if that's the complaint, then yes, Christian McCaffrey is a strong MVP candidate. And that goes back to this. That goes back to my favorite meme coming out of the game yesterday. McCaffrey's on the left, Purdy's on the right. That's a picture that I took in the 49ers locker room. McCaffrey is sensational. And it's time for some historical perspective. A lot of people are asking, is it possible for a running back to win the MVP award? Well, over the last 10 years, only QBs have won it. So the league has shifted into more of a running back, quarterback heavy focus, right? Especially with MVP. It's just the nature of the sport, especially with the evolving rules. But running backs prior to 10 years ago won quite frequently. And if we want to compare this 49ers offense to the greatest show on turf, Rams, around the turn of the century, I think that we have a perfect parallel to the past that suggests that, yes, Christian McCaffrey is a legitimate NFL MVP contender. The greatest show on turf, Rams, who had an arsenal of players that I think is very reminiscent of who the 49ers have. Marshall Faulk played the Christian McCaffrey role, right? Both of these guys, such versatile pieces at the running back position, two of the most versatile pieces in NFL history. Kurt Warner, undrafted quarterback underappreciated as hell, but was lighting up efficiency records. His yards per attempt number is the same as Brock Purdy's, who's been underappreciated as hell, Mr. Irrelevant. Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, two dangerous receivers. So you look at the 49ers with Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. The 49ers might even be more loaded because they have George Kittle on top of that. Orlando Pace, the left tackle for the Rams, and obviously Trent Williams, the 49ers. I can go on, but the point is that if you look at those greatest show on turf Rams teams, in 1999, Kurt Warner won the MVP. Marshall Faulk was the runner-up. In 2001, Kurt Warner won the MVP. Marshall Faulk was the runner-up. But in 2000, Kurt Warner was hurt for a few games. Marshall Faulk won the MVP. And I think that when I look at Marshall Faulk's statistics and I look at what Christian McCaffrey's on pace for, McCaffrey's on pace for around the ballpark of what Marshall Faulk did that year. So, yes, it is possible for McCaffrey to win the MVP. But when you see the context, you see even back then when running backs were winning more likely, it's more likely to go to the quarterback, especially if he's played a full season and has been healthy. And, I'll get to it when we get to the Brock Purdy section here. Brock Purdy has been obviously healthy all year, but he's been producing at just such an otherworldly, historic level that we never seen a quarterback as good as him statistically not win the MVP. MVP Offensive Player of the Year split has happened before. Again, Faulk and Warner, 99, 2001. Other way around. Warner MVP, Marshall Faulk, the Offensive Player of the Year. I think that's something that might happen with the 49ers. But Christian McCaffrey's been absolutely sensational. He's over 1,200 yards rushing. Nobody else in the NFL is even over 1,000 yards rushing. It is something to watch with this football team. So let's get to Purdy. We're going to give Purdy an A. I think he underthrew a deep pass to Brandon Ayuk by like a fingernail on the first drive of the game, but the 49ers scored anyway. That's why it's not an A+. And we talk about Purdy and we talk about Christian McCaffrey. That's where you have to read my article. I'll put it up on the screen in a bit, but I want to show you some of the NFL history that's happening right now. Adjusted net yards per attempt. Purdy has now passed 2011 Aaron Rodgers in adjusted net yards per attempt. That's going to include sacks, interceptions, and touchdowns. So it is the most correlated figure to the NFL MVP award. Purdy's up to 9.6. He was at 9.3, but he passed 2011 Aaron Rodgers, who's at 9.4. And now it's 2004 Peyton Manning ahead of Brock Purdy. If Purdy, he didn't get sacked yesterday, if he continues to not take sacks and continues delivering explosive plays at the elite rate that he's delivering them, the 49ers can see their quarterback potentially be at the very top of the list. Would be awesome to see Brock Purdy be the most efficient quarterback in NFL history, to deliver the most efficient season ever after people were trying to say that he was a system guy and a dink and dunk guy this offseason. I mean, people still saying some of this stuff. It's absolutely ridiculous. One thing yesterday, I saw some complaints from people or criticisms or whatever the hell they want to call them. It's just nonsense. I just saw some nonsense from people saying, oh, the 49ers receivers are way too open, citing the Christian McCaffrey play where, yes, he was open. Do you not realize that Brock Purdy spun out of pressure and rolled to his left, which was considered his weakness last year, to be able to throw to Christian McCaffrey open? If he doesn't spin out of the pressure and deliver the off-schedule stuff, that opportunity is not there. The very play before, it's 3rd and 11. Arizona lights the 49ers up with a blitz, and McCaffrey and Purdy sits in there, takes the hit, fires a strike, calmly fires a strike to George Kittle crossing over the middle. So if he doesn't convert the 3rd and 11, then he doesn't set himself up for the open throw to Christian McCaffrey. And he doesn't set himself up for the open throw to Christian McCaffrey if he doesn't spin out of pressure. I mean, quarterbacks make plays, and making plays opens up opportunities downfield. That has been the case for every single quarterback to ever play the game. So I asked the people who point out that Brock Purdy is throwing to open receivers, why they treat him differently than every single quarterback to ever play the game. What is it about Brock Purdy that you don't like? What did he do to you? Why are you so biased against Brock Purdy? Why are you treating him differently than literally every single quarterback to ever play the game? I mean, the level of bias is insane. I get it. A lot of people are embarrassed because it was embarrassing to say that Trey Lance was better than Brock Purdy or that Trey Lance would start over Brock Purdy this offseason. That was embarrassing. The people who said that should be embarrassed because it was a terrible take. It showed a lack of football knowledge. But whatever, like just admit you were wrong and we'll all move on and get along with it. But there's still like this holdover effect of he can't possibly be good because I misevaluated him and I'm going to stick to my evaluation. And to me, I mean, it's just pathetic at this point. It really is. Again, I'll put this back up on the screen. Brock Purdy is delivering the second most efficient season of all time. So have at it. It's been awesome. And that's all I can possibly say. Those are the grades for the 49ers. Be sure to check out the article on The Athletic. It is in the description. And you can read everything from the locker room. You could read everything that is based around this, the 49ers MVP candidates pointing at each other. A lot of finger pointing going on in that 49ers locker room as they enter this showdown against the Ravens. The 49ers are 5-point favorites, or at least they were last night. I'll keep an eye on that number moving forward. Brock Purdy, the favorite to win MVP. I think that the second in line right now is Lamar Jackson. So the stakes in this game are going to be very, very high. All right, I've got to hop onto the radio, KMBR. So listen to me and Greg Papa right now. You can listen live. I think you could find the app or whatever. But subscribe to The Athletic, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you very soon.